Good afternoon, students. Today we want to look at notes payable and notes receivable, and we want to look at this from the perspective of the borrower and the lender. So what you need to do here is to go to your PowerPoints, which are on Blackboard, find them, pull them up. Then right below that, you'll find the homework problem. Let's see if we can find it here. Okay, there's the PowerPoints. There's the in-class, and the homework problem is actually on the last slide of the PowerPoint. So you need to pull both of these up, make your copy, and then let's go back to the PowerPoints. Okay. Now, the situation in this note is that this young lady, Julia, went to a bank. She borrowed $1,000 for 90 days. The interest rate's 12%, and she signs a note. The note looks like this. Okay, this is a contract between she and the bank. This says that on July the 10th, she borrowed $1,000 for 90 days. The name of the bank should be in the center. Down at the bottom, she signed it. It's filled out like a check. Some of them are a lot longer than this, but this is her promise that she is going to repay the bank for the money that she borrowed, plus there's an interest rate. Notice that 12%. That's the interest rate. Notice the terminology here. The principal amount is the amount of the loan. The payee is going to be, in this case, the person who's loaning the money, and the person borrowing the money here is the maker, Julia. Okay, now let's make the journal entries here. Come back, and I had already started this when I got interrupted. So we want to first look at the bank journal entries, and this is going to be a receivable for the bank. What that means is it's an asset. The bank's loaning her money. She's promising to repay it, but it's not an accounts receivable, it's a notes receivable. So on July the 10th, they want to set up a debit for the notes receivable of $1,000. And they're going to give her a cashier's check. You should have learned about that under the cash topic, for $1,000. Or they'll either put it directly into her account. And this is to record the loan. To Julia. Okay, now, for Julia, we want to set up a payable. This is a liability for her, saying that she's going to repay the loan. So in her books, she'll take the cash, which is an asset, okay, and you will record a notes payable of $1,000. And this is to record the receipt of the cash. By Julia. Okay, so one entry for the bank here, one entry for Julia. Notice the bank records a receivable, which is an asset, and it's called a notes receivable. Julia records a liability, and it's a notes payable. Okay, so asset for the bank, and this is a liability for Julia. Okay. All right, now 90 days goes by, and Julia has to repay the loan with interest. So we're just going to take the interest portion separately from the paying back the loan, for recording the loan. So we want to first show how to record interest. Now, in your PowerPoints, there's a computation here. Principal means the main sum, times your interest rate, times the fraction of the year that Julia had the note, divided by 360. And we use 360 because that's what the banks use. It gives them a little bit more interest. So 365 is not what they use. They use 360 in their computations. Notice here's how it's calculated. 1,000 times 12%, that would be 0.12, times 90 over 360. Okay, so if you spread that out, it's 1,000 times 0.12 times 0.25 equals $30. So the interest amount that the bank will receive is 30, and Julia will pay 30. Okay, so let's do the journal entry for that, coming back to our paper. Okay, now in this case, we're looking at Julia first. I probably should have done this in a different order, but we're going to show that Julia, on October the 8th, she will record an expense. Interest expense, and she'll credit cash. So she's going to send the bank $30 in cash, and she's going to show $30 interest expense. This is to record the interest. Now, so if she had a business, this would reduce her revenue and lower her net income. Now the bank is going to get the interest, so they will take the check or the cash that Julia gives them on October the 8th. So the bank will take the cash, $30, and they show a revenue. That's how they make their money, from loans. So they will record interest revenue, $30. I'm going to put interest paid for Julia, and down here we'll record interest received by the bank. Okay, now that's a part of it. Now we've got to pay them back their money. Now the other alternative would be that they might renew the note and Julia just has to pay the interest and they renew the note for another 30 days. But in this case, Julia is going to pay back the $1,000, so that will occur on October the 8th also. Now, what you're going to do is, Julia had a liability, which was a credit. You now want to debit that liability. That means she'll no longer owe it, and she will want to either take cash or send them a check for the $1,000. This is to record repayment of the note. Okay. Then the bank is going to get the cash down here in number 6. They will take Julia's $1,000 and they will get rid of that asset, notes receivable. Okay, where it was a debit, they want to credit it now. I'm just going to put the same thing to record repayment of the note. So those would be all of your journal entries. And there would no longer be an asset, notes receivable, because if you were posting that, it would zero out. There would no longer be a notes payable liability by Julia because it closed out. And the bank has made $30, and Julia has used the money for 3 months, and she's used it for whatever she needs and recorded $30 as an expense. Now, the other thing is the homework is on the last slides, but I also want you to know how to calculate interest. So let's do this interest in class for a few minutes. We want to take $10,000 times the 8%, 0.08, times the 45 divided by 360. And what you're going to have, if you do all these calculations, is this interest would be $100. Let's do the next one. You need to know how to do this for the test. 40,000 times 0.10 times 90 days divided by 360. And in that case, it would end up being $1,000. And then we have one more. 2,000 times 0.09, because you're going 2 places to the left between wherever the percent sign is. Right before that's where your decimal is, and go 2 places to the left. Then times 30 days divided by 360. And that will be $15. All right, all those calculations are in your PowerPoints. Your homework will be this last slide. Do 6 journal entries just on a plain sheet of paper. Submit it by Friday to the assignment tab on Blackboard. Make sure you have all 6 of them, and make sure you do me an explanation so I know what you're doing and who you're recording it for. Okay. All right, with that said, that'll be your homework due Friday. Take care.